Right, let's see. Make sure it actually went. Looks like we're live. Hey, everybody, welcome to the channel, Pennsylvania Preparedness. I'm here today. I'm going to be hosting Prepping with Sarge and the Orlando Prepper. I know that we have to emphasize the part of the Orlando Prepper. I know that there might be a little mishap with the name there, but we're making sure that we emphasize the. So tonight we're going to be talking a little about. Sarge has a topic that we're going to be talking about, but I'm going to introduce both my guests today. I'm going to start out with the Orlando Prepper, and then we're going to go right into Sarge, and we're going to go from there. So, Orlando Prepper, the Orlando Prepper. What can you tell me about your channel?
Yeah. Let's make sure we put that "the" on there because after I started my channel here and, I picked up several subscribers, another YouTube channel jumped in there that was just Orlando Prepper. And I'm sure that's the reason I'm pretty sure that's the reason he did it. I mean, he was trying to scalp some of my folks, but that's all right. We're all trying to build a channel here. But my channel's basically the videos are like how-to videos, how to do things that you might not, people might not know how to do, or equipment demonstrations where I go and buy a piece of equipment. If it's something that I use that I can recommend, then yeah, I do a video on it. But a lot of prepper channels are right now, especially with election year coming up. There's a lot of political stuff going on, but the only time I do any political stuff is on my live streams. Any of my videos that are just, posted as videos, they have nothing to do with politics. Uh, hopefully I'm trying to teach people things, how to do things, or the right equipment to get when times go bad. And, basically that's why I'm here. I just want to help people out.
Awesome. That sounds pretty good. That's pretty much what we're all out here to do, helping people out little bit by little bit. All right. Prepping with Sarge, introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us about your channel, and we'll get right into the topic that you have for us today.
Yeah, thanks for having us both on. I'm here on YouTube and on Instagram, Prepping with Sarge on both. Like Orlando Prepper, I don't do a ton of politics. I hit on it a little bit more on my Twitter channel. For those of you who like politics talk, join me over there. If you don't like politics talk, you probably shouldn't join me over there. So on the YouTube, I pretty much stick to preparedness and do a little bit of food self-sufficiency, some foraging and gardening, that kind of thing. Do a little bit. I tie in the mental health piece of this too. I'm a therapist by trade, and primarily working with first responders at this point. And so that's going to tie in a little bit later on to what we're talking about tonight. And I do a little bit of financial preparedness on the channel too, just kind of being ready for recession, things like that, or God forbid, economic collapse. Hopefully we don't ever get to that situation, but we talk about all that kind of stuff too. So excited to be here tonight. We got a fun topic for everybody. Did we lose you, Kyle?
I still got him. I still have him here.
Lost audio on you for a second. Can you hear us?
Looks like he's having some problems there, Sarge.
Yeah.
Be a good time for me to welcome my folks over. I see some folks here that's usually on my channel. So I appreciate you guys coming over. So are you back with us, Kyle? We got no audio.
Yeah, something's wrong with your audio, man. It doesn't look like you're muted though, so I don't know what's going on. It's weird.
He's trying. Your video's good. We need some audio, Kyle. Well, here we go. Okay. Hang on a minute. The wonders of modern day technology.
While he's trying to get that fixed, I'll start to introduce our topic here. So we've been kind of talking through email here, and these two guys here are first responders. I'll let them talk about what they've done and do. And I am a therapist who works with first responders, and so we when we were talking about trying to get together for collaboration, one of the topics that I've been wanting to talk about for a while is the strain on the first responder community if we got into a really bad situation like this picture behind me, right? Like something like that. I think that this is something that the preparedness community is probably maybe a little bit more aware of than the non-prepper community, but there's maybe some roles that the prepping community can take with also with helping with this, and we also need to do some reality checks on like what the first responder community is going to be able to do in a situation like this, right? So this could be anything. It could be an attack on the United States, it could be a civil war, it could be domestic terrorism, it could be um, I don't know, catastrophic failure of an infrastructure, anything like that. And so I know Orlando in Florida has probably dealt with more than a few hurricanes. I'm in the great state of South Carolina. We certainly get our share of hurricanes. We've also had some interesting stuff here with riots. We've had some interesting stuff here with blanking here. We've had a couple active shooters situations that are well known by the national news. And so, sometimes there's been situations where we've gotten almost into a localized SHTF situation, and even that takes a huge strain on the resources, right? How are you doing, Pennsylvania? Are you back with us? Oh no,
Nope.
You
Still
might-
no audio, buddy.
yeah, you might try to log out and log back in and see if that does it.
But like what you said, Sarge, if when things do go sideways, not if they go sideways, the first responder community, a lot of people don't realize how stressed they're going to be. They're shorthanded already, and especially for me being a former retired police officer, police departments are running really, really short right now. They can't get any recruits.
Yeah.
And they're loosening up their requirements, which is really not a good thing.
Yeah.
But when things do go sideways, it's people just have to take the time to wait and see, or they have to be ready to take care of these things on their own. They can't wait for like right now, the average response time for a police officer is between 12 and 15 minutes. Well, that's a tremendous amount of time when things are bad.
Right.
Folks are just going to have to learn to do things on their own to take care of themselves. And that's why in a lot of my videos, I tell people, get what you have to protect yourself, and make sure you know what I'm talking about, and make sure you have plenty to feed them, because it might come down to that when things go sideways.
So you said the average response time is up to 15 minutes. It's probably more in more rural areas too. That's up significantly from what it was just a few years ago. The average response time used to be 8 minutes, right? And so how we doing, Pennsylvania?
Can you guys hear me all right?
There you are.
Back
All
in
right,
business.
we got you.
Oh, man.
So that alone, just taking that factor on, like not even an SHTF situation, right? Just somebody breaks into our house in the middle of the night. Let's say I live in a city, pretty decent response time here. Well, so let's say it's 8 minutes, right? That's considered pretty fast response time. 8 minutes is a long time when you've got strangers in your house that are meaning to do you harm.
Oh yeah.
That a lot can happen in 8 minutes. So without getting too much, because I don't really hit on this stuff too much. I think most of the people in the preparedness community kind of know what we're talking about, but you need to have some skills and you need to have the right tools to deal with a situation like that. Now,
one thing I want to add here, Sarge, is when I retired, the day I retired, our average response time was 3 to 5 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And now, like I said, it's 12 to 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So that right there demonstrates, how much worse it's gotten since, I was there.
Yeah. And what do you see there in Pennsylvania is what do you know what the response time is around there?
No, I don't really know my local. Actually, it's kind of funny. I actually just called our dispatch before the live happened, and it took them about, I want to say 10 minutes, and it was just I saw some kids up on a roof yelling or something. So I was like, that's why I said earlier, I was like, I wasn't sure if I would be here on time for the live because I didn't know how long it was going to take them to get there. But yeah, so I mean, around here, I have a local police department. It doesn't take too long, but I know a lot of other places around me have state police coverage, and sometimes that can be a little longer because they got to go all around the county.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that I've talked about on my channel a little bit, that there's pros and cons to living in the city versus living in the county, right? So I think most people in the preparedness community would say that living in the count, like living out in the country, is going to be probably a little bit better if there's a really big event. But if it's a short-term event, there's actually some advantages to being in the city because of there's a more rapid response time. Resources are turned back on faster, and that kind of stuff. And I've lived in pretty rural situations, like an hour away from most other like stores and gas stations and things like that. And I live where like I literally can pull out of my house and within a few minutes I'm at gas, groceries, movie theaters, whatever, you name it. So there's pros and cons. There's definitely more crime where I'm at right now compared to what I saw before. But
Yeah, convenience is nice. As
sometimes,
long as life is normal.
as long as life is normal. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we were talking a little bit when you jumped off for a second, Pennsylvania, we were talking about the hurricanes as just like an example of like a minor or a mid short term SHTF, right? And so Orlando, what do you see down there in Florida when there's like, you guys have had a couple big ones actually in the last few years. You guys have had some pretty decent sized hurricanes. What do they tell people, if they're not evacuating, if they're staying, what do they usually say to people down there?
Well, I mean, if they're in the coastal areas, of course, they tell them to go inland. So, but the biggest problem here is like what happened, if people can remember Andrew and Michael a few years ago, and the one a couple of years ago that hit over on the West Coast, people just won't leave home.
Yeah.
They don't realize the possibility of what can happen. But for those of us inland here, we see a lot of, rushes on, grocery stores or supermarkets or whatever. But thankfully, I'm in a situation here where I don't have to worry about that. I just watch social media and see what other people are doing and what they're having to put up with when they go to like Publix or Kroger or whatever, But they just, a lot of people are ready. They have 3 to 5 days worth of supplies, which is great. But if you go back to like Irma, which was the last one that really hit Orlando hard, we were out of power for like a week. And most people aren't ready for that. Even now, even with all the notices they get and all of it, all of the storms we've had, there's still people that just are not ready. And I don't know why. I have no idea why they want to be that way.
Yeah, it's always surprising.
Yeah, here in Pennsylvania, we don't get as many people thinking about bigger scenarios like that because it's a lot more rare. I think the last big hurricane we had that affected us was in like 2011, and nobody was prepared. Everybody was running themselves ragged, and afterwards, everybody's just like, "Well, that's over with." Didn't get ready for the next one or nothing. So,
well, one thing the people up there in the Midwest need to keep an eye on is a lot of the power companies up there. They're already telling some of their customers, there might be problems with power in the winter because the grid's going to be stressed.
Yeah.
And with this administration, I hate to get political on your show, but I'm just being honest. With this administration saying they're going to shut down all of these coal power plants, there's a lot of them in the Midwest. And if they do shut them down, that's just going to make it worse up there on you guys.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, and I don't understand the whole premise behind shutting places down because either way, it's got to come from somewhere. So, I don't understand the whole plan. When you talk about running things on clean energy, it's like you're still making the electricity with coal a lot of the time. So I don't really understand all that either.
Well, they're just virtue signaling. They're playing to, their constituents. They know the infrastructure is not in place with solar or wind power. They just don't care.
Yeah.
You know, they're just virtue signaling is all they're doing. But it's costing people like, you know, me and you. When they shut those plants down, it's going to cost people like us. So we need to get ready for that.
Yeah, for sure.
You guys get Pennsylvania. You guys get a lot of blizzards and ice storms, right?
Yeah, that I was gonna say. You guys were talking about the hurricanes, and I was thinking to myself, I was like, what do we really have up here in Pennsylvania that's anywhere comparable to hurricanes? And yeah, we do during the winter months. We definitely have a lot of ice storms and a lot of blizzards, lots of snow, stuff like that. And really, I think one of the biggest issues from that isn't necessarily from the amount of snow at first or the ice. It's typically afterwards, once it does warm up, we have a lot of flooding and a lot of like people don't think about, they think it's colder environment, but it's when it starts to warm back up in the spring. We have a lot of that frozen stuff that's starting to melt, and that's where we start to get flooding and even stuff like mudslides, stuff like that. Not on a huge scale,
Yeah.
but Pennsylvania, luckily, it's mountainous, but it has lots of trees. So we're lucky there. A lot of the times the trees will soak up a majority of it, but the flooding definitely becomes an issue, especially towards around April. That's when it gets really bad.
So when we get a hurricane here in coastal South Carolina, they depending on what it is, if it's anything a 2 or higher, they're generally going to encourage people to start thinking about evacuating, especially those that are close to the water. And same thing that Orlando's talking about. A lot of people won't. We typically don't. For our neighborhood, we typically don't. We have our reasons for that. But if it's we also have our protocols. There is certain things where we say if this happens, we're going. We're back, and we did evacuate for Matthew. But one of the things it's really interesting to me because they'll tell people, okay, you need to go. This is it. You're running out of time. And then they say, okay, this is it. This is your last chance. If you're going to evacuate, you got to go now. And they'll have emergency preparedness responders and whatnot on the TV doing updates frequently all the way up and through the storm as if they can, and then after the storm. And they'll be saying things like, you need to know, this is where it gets a little bit dicey. You need to know once the storm starts, our first responders may not be able to come out and get to you, right? And
Right.
That's a little scary when you get to even our family, and I'm a prepper and my wife's got a good mindset about it. We have a lot of our own resources, but there's stuff that could happen that's beyond our control. A tree could land on our house or roof could blow off, things like that. And when you get to that last minute when you're like, this is it, either you're going or you're staying, and once you stay, you got to weather it out and nobody's coming to help you. Like thoughts go through my mind, like, what if I had a heart attack, right? What if I had a stroke? Like all those things, like, you guys know from the work that you did, time matters, right?
Right.
And
Oh,
so
yeah.
a stroke or a heart attack, the faster I can get to emergency help, the better my chances are. But there's no help coming, right? You're on your own at that point, and that's a really nerve-wracking thing, even for me as a prepper. So people who don't think about this stuff at all and have no plans, don't have any first aid skills, things like that, what they end up doing is they'll still call 911 in our area. And I'm sure you guys have seen this too. They'll still call 911 and the first and non-emergency stuff like, my cat got out. The fire department can't help you look for your cat, not when a hurricane's blowing through. They can't,
Hey,
you guys are laughing, but I'm right?
Oh yeah, doing that for all the years I did it, some of the calls we got that were just absolutely ridiculous. And to the person that's calling, they think it's an emergency, but it's really not.
Yeah.
And that's just going to complicate things when things do go bad. But we're talking about, like, here for me and you, Sarge, we're talking about hurricanes, and for Kyle, we're talking about ice storms or whatever. But it can happen anywhere in the country at any time.
Right.
And people need to get ready. I mean, I'll give you a good example. I've been talking to my family. I'm the only one in my family that was on board with this, getting ready for an emergency, until 2 weeks ago, a week and a half or 2 weeks ago. And finally, a couple of my family members got on board and they're starting to do things. And one of the things that was brought up was, my family's in Tennessee. So they're in an area where they're going to get ice storms, power's going to go out. But finally, one of my family members decided they were going to break down and buy a generator, a solar generator, so they wouldn't have to depend on gasoline or propane to even power it. They bought a good solar power generator. But you never know, if you just you don't have to hammer it home. Just keep bringing up the topic every now and then. Ask a little question here, Yeah. Do you have enough food? If you can't, if the store runs out of food, you got enough to last until the store is restocked. If your power goes out, do you have a way to run your refrigerator, run some lights, maybe a little heat, and eventually it's going to hit home. It surprised me. It really did when this person, they sent me a picture of a generator they had bought and said, what do you think about this? Did I make a good choice? And it really surprised me. It did. But thank goodness it worked.
Good. Yeah, and those little solar generators definitely have their uses. They can't do everything. They can't run your air conditioning. They can't run heating, but they can charge up your electronics if you've got rechargeable flashlights and rechargeable batteries for your radio. They can lighting, like you said, they can run some lighting for you, so they can keep your phones going, which is so important to keep informed, like what's going on.
Right.
Because when the power is out, that's how the hurricanes we've had here, we're still watching the broadcasts on our phones, so we have to be able to keep our phones charged up.
Well, I mean, luckily I got I probably shouldn't tell anybody, but I got a setup here where as long as a television station is broadcasting, I can watch it on my TV.
Yeah.
But the phone is great. The way they have phones nowadays with the apps, you can just go and watch your local television channels or the weather channel or whatever. Yeah, you got to keep that going. You really do. That's very important.
Especially like after the power goes out early in a storm. It usually happens pretty quick, but the storm's not over, and there's a lot more that's still coming. And all of a sudden you could have surge flooding, right? And you could have all these other things, and you need to know that. You need to know, like, hey, Main Street's about to be inundated with 4 feet of water. You should have left yesterday, but now you got to figure something out. Get to your roof or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Luckily, here where we are located, in relation to the way the terrain is, hopefully it would be a lot of water before it ever got that point to me. Good. But there's a lot of people in those flood zones, and they need to realize, that they are there.
Yeah.
And what
I'm at sea level. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a lot of people don't understand though too is, like, they might think that, yeah, of course, they might live right down the street from a fire station or something like that. But simply put, a lot of times when there is something big like that going on, there's going to be fire, EMS, police running from call to call to call.
Yeah.
And, a lot of the time these people are using buzzwords just to get people going there quicker. They might say like somebody's fighting when it's just like a verbal argument.
Right.
Just get somebody there quicker. They show up. They're like, well, this is not. So they'll just deal with it how they need to get to the next major call. I remember, I think it was 2011, we had remnants of a hurricane come up our way. I think we were running for about 3 days straight trying to catch calls until we got pulled to another county to assist them. And that was the first time I got to sleep, was the drive down to another station.
Been there, done that.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, but the average person don't realize that. And they don't realize how it's going to affect them when it does happen.
Exactly.
I think that's it. I think most people think if I dial 911, they're going to be there, and they're going to do their best. They're going to do their best, but it might be a while.
Right. We live in a society that's used to right now with everything. Everything is right now.
Mm-hmm.
But then when it does get bad and everybody has that right now situation, that's when it gets bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and all those apps and all the broadcasts are nice and stuff, but what are you going to do if the cell towers, or there is no cell signal, or it's just simply the everything is overwhelmed and you can't get to the apps, you can't get to the broadcast, you can't, I know radio's typically going to be working, but for the most part, a lot of the other stuff will get bogged down. I think a great example of that is, unfortunately in New York City on 9/11, when everybody was trying to call and you simply couldn't get through because all the lines were tied up.
Right.
And, today, imagine everybody with their cell phones, they have a phone right there. So they're all going to be calling, well, okay, I'd probably say about half are going to be calling, the other half are going to be having their phone up recording. But, I can only imagine, because being a dispatcher currently, sometimes you get 5 or 6 people calling on the same thing, and you're just like, okay, I can't answer 6 calls at once. Yeah. So, these centers getting tons and tons of calls on multiple incidents, I can only imagine.
Yeah. Well, you touched on 2 things right there I want to comment on. First is the cellular network. It's going to work. Right now, if everything went out, if there was an EMP or a CME, there's some there's a lot of cell towers out there that are protected. They have emergency power, and they're going to work for like 2 or 3 days. But once that generator runs out of power, they have generators built in them. A lot of them are EMP protected. I know they are here in Florida. But once that power runs out after that 2nd or 3rd day, then even those people whose services is working, they're going to be in the dark.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, like Sarge was talking about, everybody's going to be wanting to tap into that system.
Yeah.
And you mentioned it too. That's why I wanted to comment on it. Everybody's going to be trying to go make those cell calls. They're going to be on those cell phones using them. But after 2 or 3 days, that's even going to be gone as well.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a bad situation. And people just don't realize that unless they're watching what's going on like we are.
Right.
Yeah. Well, you guys were both are first responders. What skills do you think that the prepping community and just anybody who happens to see this, maybe some people will share this out with friends and family, what skills do you think people need to have for this kind of like, hey, nobody's coming, 911's not going to be able to get to me? What I mentioned self-defense earlier, obviously, because and didn't even get into that, but yeah, there's when you hear about looting after these kind of incidents, it's real. It's a real thing. And we take security very, very seriously at our household. When there's a hurricane, we take shifts. We're in good contact with neighbors, and everybody's eyes on the road and paying attention to what's going on, because you will see people rolling around in their cars that clearly don't belong there, that are looking for opportunistic houses that have been evacuated, things like that. They're easy targets. Yeah,
absolutely.
But besides self-defense, what other skills do you guys think people need?
Go ahead, Kyle. Tell me what you think.
I would 100% say one of the best things that somebody could do is get into a first aid, AD, CPR class. That is by far one of the best things that you could do, because not only does it give you skills, but a lot of times, like when people start going through that class, it puts them more in the mindset of, oh, I'm the first responder.
Mm-hmm.
When they tell you to look at somebody and say, like, you call 911, like, it really makes people get in the mindset of, oh, this is real. Like, I'm going to have to be the one that tells somebody you need to call 911, because if not, nobody else is going to come until that happens. So, that I think is a huge wake up call. I've seen a lot of people that, have never done anything like that before in their entire life go through a CPR class, and that really starts to kindle something with them where they're like, wow, that was really cool, but I want to know how to do a little bit more, or I want to learn how to do this or that, because CPR is huge, seconds really count there. But once you learn that, you start to get more comfortable, and from there you can maybe learn, I saw XNYC Prepper said about bleed stop training, and there's so many other classes, and they have no idea about it until they first take that class. And then I know with me, I had CPR training for years until I became an EMT, and I was like, wow, the amount of knowledge you learn is just vast. It's crazy how much you can learn. And I always thought, oh, I can't be an EMT. Like, that takes so much training. But once you start to do it, you realize your capabilities. Anybody can do it. It's just a matter of getting through the process and, retaining those skills and continuing on with it.
Beyond that, like you said, first aid CPR training absolutely should be a must-have for everybody. But the next steps beyond that, I'm going to recommend that you learn how to use a tourniquet properly. We were told for so long, don't use a tourniquet, don't use a tourniquet. And now with, that medical advancements, they're learning that, yeah, these things are very valuable. You really should learn to use them and learn how to, I know it sounds kind of, strange right now, but, you learn how to, make a splint, how to splint a broken bone properly, how to stop bleeding. Like you said, that traumatic bleed, we got to stop that right off the bat. And that's what people need to learn. And I would probably venture to say that maybe 95% of the public don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
And that's something that they really need to learn how to do, because if things really do go sideways, like both of you guys have agreed, you are your own first responder.
Mm-hmm.
And when situations go bad, you have to know those things.
Yeah. Have you guys, without getting into details, have you guys come across scenes where somebody's heart had stopped and it took you guys a couple minutes to get there because of traffic or whatever, and nobody's doing anything because they didn't know how?
Let me tell you a good one. This is from back in the day. Okay.
Yeah.
We got a call that on a medical emergency, and I got there before the first fire department first responders did. And this was this lady that was having she had a heart attack. She was out. She was done. So I did CPR on her. Thank goodness that it worked. Brought her back. She got to breathing on her own. Her heart started beating. But here's the problem with being a police officer, and it's even worse now than it was then. I broke 2 of her ribs when I did CPR on her, and she sued me for $3 million. Thank goodness she didn't win.
Yeah, because the what is it? What's the law that's supposed to protect you? Good Samaritan law?
Yeah, but that's worthless. Good
Really?
Samaritan law is worthless.
Wow.
Yeah. But like I said, thank goodness she didn't win. But of course, she sued me because I broke her ribs, and yeah, I did break her ribs. But it went all the way to depositions before it was determined that she wasn't going to actually win this case.
Yeah.
But those are things you got to do. And that's a good example to let you know that even if you know how to do them, there might be consequences that aren't that great.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I broke her ribs. Yeah, I did. I saved her life, and but she had trouble breathing for the next 6 or 8 weeks, but she was breathing.
Right.
And that's the point. You got to learn to save lives.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sorry that happened the way that it did. That she clearly ungrateful. But just like what we're talking about with this training, right? Like, so, everybody out there who's listening, if you're not a first responder, you're not necessarily legally or ethically obligated to do something for a stranger, but you sure want to have that skill for your family and friends who might be with you when something happens. So,
Absolutely.
So get
from
the training.
I can tell you from a legal standpoint, you want to save somebody's life, and hopefully, if you ever get in that situation, you will save that life, but there might be consequences. So, you got to remember that. But if it's your family, hey, go for it. Absolutely. Do what you got to do. That's the important thing.
Well, I know that there was a story like a couple, maybe 2-3 years ago, in the height of all this. I don't want to say anything wrong here, but in the midst of all this wokeness, I guess would be the best way to put it, was somebody that they fell into a body of water. Somebody saved them, and they later had the audacity to say, I'm going to sue them because they didn't have my permission to touch me. It was a male that saved a female. And I saw that. I know XNYC Prepper said about your story how that was disgusting. I was like, yeah, some of these people on the tail end of it, you save their life, and their first thought is, how can I make money off of this?
Right.
Which is absolutely terrible and disgusting. But I also want to say, you're not doing CPR right unless you break a rib. If it's somebody that's a younger male, that's in good health, and typically you won't break their ribs, but a majority of the people that you do CPR on, you're gonna feel a crunch. And
Absolutely.
I had a buddy that was working with me, and he wanted to get into being an EMT. He had a CPR certification, and it was while I was working at a casino as an EMT. We had a cardiac arrest, and I said, "Yo, come here." He goes, "What?" I said, "Put your hands down." I put his hands down. I put my hands on top of his, and we both pushed at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And he felt the crack, and he goes, "What was that?" I was like, "Listen, man, do you want to put your hands back down?" I was like, "That was the rib cage. You ready?" He's like, "No, do it." I was like, "Okay." I was like, "I told you before you'd feel that." And he's like, "No, I'm good." He ended up not becoming an EMT, but I was like, I wanted you to experience
you need to see it. Yeah. You need to see
it's something you're going to have to do.
Yeah.
I felt kind of bad, but I was like, hey, you had to find out the hard way. So
yeah, especially when they're older, like that lady that sued me. I think she was 72 years old. But, you're working with, you got to do what you got to do. It don't matter.
Right. Yep.
Well, let me throw two other trainings out there that the first one it would be get some mental health first aid training, and I do a little bit of that on my channel. You can check out the videos I've got on that because I think we in the prepper community would like to think I'm tough, I'm resilient, I won't get a panic attack, I won't get nightmares, I won't get flashbacks.
Right.
Yeah. Good luck. I've worked with Marines that were on the front line in Afghanistan and Iraq. These are tough guys. These are really tough guys. And trust me, they're having symptoms. So get your mental health first aid training. So you got at least some basics, right? It's not the same thing as psychotherapy, but it's going to give some basics. It's going to be able to give somebody some help, especially until you can get help, more professional help available.
Right.
And then the other one's going to be a little, you guys want to say anything about that before I go on to my other one?
Well, I'm going to tell you, if somebody has PTSD, they don't know it.
Yeah.
Initially, they don't know it.
Yeah. The spouse is going to see it first usually.
Exactly. Somebody else is going to see it and they're going to point it out to them. And I can say that from experience.
Yeah.
Believe me, I went through a lot of stuff in my days. With all the stuff I went through, even before I got on the police department. Back in the day when I was, and you don't realize it until somebody says, "Hey, you might want to have this checked out. This is what's happening to you."
Yeah.
And, don't be a tough guy. Don't try to be a manly man and say, "No, I can do this myself." Don't do that. I mean, I had to, honestly, I never told anybody. I'm going to tell you right here. It's on your channel, Kyle. I'm coming out and I'm telling everybody. Yeah, I had to get out and get some help. And I'm glad I did. Yeah. Because I didn't realize until somebody said, "Hey, you might want to go talk to somebody about this."
Right.
Thank God they pointed it out to me and it was handled the right way.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I feel like every first responder, whether they know it or not, has some, I don't want to say anything specific, but, everybody has, you can't do that kind of stuff and not have something mentally change in you. I know one of the first times I realized I had anything, that I guess I saw somebody put in the word triggered. So I guess that's the word I'm going to use. But I remember I was sleeping at somebody's house and they were watching Law and Order SVU. And you know how it has in the introduction, the siren noise or whatever it is, the musical part. And I woke up and I ran right into the door. They're like, "What's wrong with you?" And I just looked. I was like, "Oh, I got a fire call."
They're like, you were coding.
"Dude, you're at your house." I was like,
yeah.
"Oh," like it's just. And I was like, "Oh," I didn't realize my body reacted in that way because I was so used to just hearing a siren and getting up, running, getting my stuff ready. And, it's like, once you experience something, you're like, oh, there might be something to this. And I was only like 21, 22 at the time. And I was like, I don't know. I'm just some dumb young kid who has no idea what's going on. I'm just enjoying my time being a firefighter and stuff.
Well, for you, it was all macho. And then you realized, hey, there's a psychological edge to this.
Right.
You know,
You think it's physical until the mental part starts creeping in a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's not anything to do with like one person's weaker than the other. It literally has nothing to do with that.
Absolutely.
So two firefighters can go into the same scene and see the same thing, and one might walk out and be like, well, that was a bad day, but he's okay. And the other one might go home and start having nightmares and flashbacks and stuff. And a lot of it has to do with that, your childhood experiences, your beliefs that you were brought up on. There's a lot more that ties into it. It's not a case of like one is stronger than the other. It has nothing to do with that. It's the background that you bring to the event.
Exactly.
So the other one after mental health first aid training is going to be a little bit controversial, but hear me out.
No, not you, Sarge. No.
Yeah, hear me out. I actually recommend that everybody get Narcan training, and the reason that before people say, well, nobody in my house does drugs like that or whatever. Okay. Hear me out. If you have teenagers and they're experimenting with just marijuana, the street marijuana now, people are putting fentanyl in the street marijuana.
Right.
Not like in the 80s and 90s where it was, cheap dirt weed or whatever they called it. The dealers are putting fentanyl into marijuana to get their clients hooked. And so you may think, oh, I have a good kid. He's a straight A kid. He plays football, whatever. You don't know that he might have had a bad week, and one of his friends said, here, try this. It's going to make you feel better. And that's the first time he tries it. Or maybe your neighbor's kid does, or something like that, right? There's a lot of different ways. It's not necessarily about like, it's a person who shoots heroin. It's their problem. No. It's gotten way beyond that at this point.
Absolutely.
It can be accidentally touching it. And you guys probably know, I know people in the first responder community who accidentally touched it and boom, they drop and they got to go to the hospital. Yeah. It's really dangerous stuff.
Yeah. Thank goodness I never ran across that. I mean, even after I left the police department, I was in a safety department at a college. Worked there for 20 years and then retired from there as well. But here's one thing people need to learn about Narcan. If you do use it on somebody,
back up.
The possibility of them waking up violent is very, very high.
Yeah.
They might come up fighting. So you're going to save their life. Hopefully it'll save their life. But they might come up very violent and very strong.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And pissed off because their high's gone.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I remember the first time I gave Narcan and they were like, the paramedic I was with was like, back up. I was like, what? And he's like, back up. I was like, why? And as soon as I looked down, I saw the dude's eyes pop open and he just started swinging. I was like, what was that? And he's like, yeah, back up.
Yeah.
It's very true.
That's the kind of thing we had to deal with in the streets, every day. People don't realize. Mm-hmm. And I'll say right here, I've always said it for years, our athletes are overpaid. Our actors are overpaid. The people that need to be getting paid are the first responders, police officers, firefighters, soldiers. Doctors are paid well, but the nurses aren't paid enough.
Yeah.
And these are the people that we need to start paying these higher wages instead of the athletes and actors and TV hosts or whatever. But, I don't think this society will ever get it because, we face so much that people don't realize.
Corrections officers, in my opinion, should get paid no less than $300,000 a year.
Oh, I agree.
To do that job.
Yeah, I wouldn't want a job where I have to be locked up every day when I go to work. Yeah. It's that simple.
If it was up to me, that would be the minimum salary for a corrections officer.
I just stayed in there for $300,000 a year.
You would have done it?
I think so. For that kind of money, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they might have had to make the food a little better, but when you see a box that says not for human consumption, it sort of turns you off to the food.
Yeah, and Rip Curl's got a really interesting comment there too, and I've considered that possibility too, because we know where this fentanyl's coming from. It's overseas, and it absolutely could be used as kind of a chemical attack. Absolutely.
Yeah, it sure could. That's right.
Yeah, so actually NYC Prepper said about Philly, of course, is here in Pennsylvania. I think he's referring more to Kensington Street or Kensington area, where there's a huge drug epidemic going on down there. A lot of the times you see videos of people standing up in the street like half bent over, where they're starting to do like the, jumping around kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's a real big issue down there. Like, I hate going to Philadelphia for the fact that I can't really have my greatest protection tool with me, or I shouldn't. And, because they don't really allow that type of tool there unless you have a permit for it specifically. But yeah, it's really bad down there. It's, I've gone through Kensington a couple times and around the area, and it is just as bad as they make it seem.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. What is that? What drug is making them like bend over like that? I've seen the videos. What is doing that? Is that fentanyl?
It's what it is. It's part fentanyl, and it's I think that they just call it trank. It's like I don't remember if it's a horse tranquilizer or it's just a generic tranquilizer. But a lot of times what they do is they combine fentanyl and the tranquilizer, and sometimes a lot of that reaction that you see the people that are standing up and like slumped over, that is where they have more of the trank in it than they do the fentanyl, because I think that that's what they're cutting it with, but it still gives you like a lot of the same effects until the fentanyl runs out in your system. So I haven't really researched it as much as I should to get up to date on it, but it's definitely whatever they're cutting it with is having that reaction.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, one more question with the Narcan guys. Is there an upper threshold on like how many times you can hit them with that?
I've never heard of one.
Not to much. I mean, I think typically I've been on the scene where they've used the nasal Narcan 8 times.
How many times?
8.
3. I was trained 3.
Well,
after that, if you don't bring them back, they're pretty
it's
much
not happening. Okay.
Yeah.
And the problem with the one that I was on was right off the bat, because where I was working, we didn't have any Narcan on us because I was working as an EMT at a casino, and the police nearby, they actually had it, and they were the ones that were told to administer it just for liability issues working in a casino. And the first 2 guys got there, they both had 2 Narcans, they used theirs, so that was 4 right off the bat. And I said to him, I was like, his nose he had blood coming out of his nose. It was like coagulated already. I said, it's not going to work. 2 more guys came, they used theirs. I was like, listen, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And he didn't respond until they got him to the hospital, but I thought he had expired. But turns out he actually lived later. I was very surprised. Nobody found him for at least 3 hours.
Oh my!
He was in a stall. I kicked the door in because somebody heard somebody sleeping. I was like, doesn't sound like sleeping. It was agonal respirations. So, yeah. So I don't think that there's an upper number of how many times you can use it. I just think after, like the Orlando Prepper said, after 2, 3, it's not really going to be any more effective than the other.
It's not going to
happen. Right. It actually does more damage because, like you said, the guy was bleeding out of his nostrils.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually does it does a lot of damage to the cavities in your head, the nasal passages or whatever. So, we were trained at, if they don't come around at 3, yep, they're gone. But I'm sure that was for liability reasons. So.
Yeah.
That's another thing that we have to worry about that most people don't. We did. I don't have to anymore. was the legal liability involved in, treating these people. Like I said earlier, the Good Samaritan law, it's great if you're not trained in any kind of medical procedure, but if you are and you are treating, you know, somebody you don't know, if you have been trained, you're going to be held accountable to that level of training. Is that something?
Gotcha.
Right. And the way I see it with all that, I actually let my EMT lapse during the height of what was going on with fentanyl, because I had some friends who, like you had said, Sarge, about people getting exposed to fentanyl. And then, some of them had to medically retire because it just messed them up so much.
Wow.
But I got out of it around that time. And afterwards I was thinking, oh, I still have all this knowledge. Like I can drop a nasal airway in or an oral airway in. I can plug up a wound if I need to. And I don't have any of the necessary, like, I don't, if it were to happen to one of my family members, I could treat them and help them, but I'm under no obligation to, like, I would help somebody out in the street if I saw it probably, but I'm not under any obligation, or I don't need to put myself in danger. If I see somebody that may have overdosed on, fentanyl, I don't have to go over and possibly touch that and get myself in a position that I could be in more danger anymore.
Right.
Which is sort of nice.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, what else do you guys think? We were about 15 minutes. We're close to an hour. Was there anything else you guys wanted to hit on tonight?
Yeah, well, I want to go back to the personal safety, self-defense. I mean, we touched on that, but I just want to add one thing here. You got to get the tools. You got to be able to defend yourself. You got to get, like I said, plenty to feed them. But learning how to do it is different than being proficient.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to get what you need to defend yourself, absolutely learn how to use it. But make sure you practice that. Don't just learn and then quit, because that's a perishable skill. It's not like riding a bike. It's not once you learn it, it's there forever. You got to learn how to do it, and then you got to keep practicing that. So, I'm going to shamelessly plug my own channel here. I have a couple of videos on, what's best to do that with. So if you want to go over there and check that out, I'm sure it would help you out. That's the only reason I'm telling you this.
Yeah. So do you show like slicing the pie and things like that?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Do you show like slicing the pie and things like that?
Actually, I recommend what people should get.
Mm-hmm.
And then I used to be an NRA instructor. So I tell people, make sure once you get that item, I'm trying not to use these words because my own videos have been demonetized recently.
I know.
Once you get those items to defend yourself, get with a professional and learn how to use them proficiently, and make sure you practice that. Yeah. I just tell you what you need to get to make sure you'll be safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I second that on spend the money on the training. If you're gonna go out there and spend $600 or $700 on a good tool,
right,
and that's probably the range of money I would say to get a good tool,
right,
then go ahead and spend a couple $100 more and get good training on it, so that you know how to do things like slicing the pie. So if you bump in the night, you need to know how to safely check your rooms, check your house.
Absolutely.
How to do, how to shoot left-handed, how to operate your tool left-handed and right-handed, how to do retention reloads, things like that,
Exactly. I hadn't gotten into that yet. I hadn't got that complicated with it yet, but you're right. People need to learn that. But first, you got to make sure you have what you need, what each individual needs. And I think I pretty well explained that in some videos.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody else has seen any of I keep seeing Facebook ads. I don't know if it's just because they're targeted at me, because that's something I look up a lot is, those specific tools and the training for those. But I keep seeing this training where somebody goes around with, it almost looks like a sandbag on a stick. and they'll actually put it right by the ejector and they'll cause a jam intentionally. And what they'll do is they'll actually duct tape the person's hand shut, and then they have to take that almost as though that limb or that appendage is now out of the fight, and you have to learn how to clear it and, maybe grab another, magazine, something like that, and completely do it one-handed, or they might tape the other hand. I keep seeing that training, and I was like, wow, like that's really something interesting that would be really awesome training to have. It trains for your worst case scenario. You're in a fight and you need to utilize those skills. And I'm just thinking about how incredible that was, that it's also on Facebook. I never would have thought I would see an ad like that on Facebook come up.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's like I said, being a former trainer, I'm going to tell you, that's some advanced stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The average person, like I said, they need to realize what they need to defend themselves and learn how to use it. I hate to say on a day-to-day basis, because hopefully it won't happen on a day-to-day basis, but be ready for it on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
And then once you get that down pat, once you've learned that and you've cycled through that several times, then you get to that advanced training. But it absolutely needs to be something that people, the more you learn, the better off you are. It's that simple.
Yeah. And with getting that tool, I think some of the things that a lot of people miss is the training. That's like the first one. Most people just buy it and they think, oh, I have it. It's here for a rainy day.
Right.
But then on top of that, what they don't do is they don't secure it properly.
Right.
And then, what was the other one? Securing it. Oh, and if you do carry it, I can't tell you how many people, some of my own family included, like to just throw it in a pocket. And I was like, what are you going to do when your keys hug on that trigger?
Exactly.
You're going to probably be needing a medical kit then. So,
yeah.
Yeah, spend the money on a good holster. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely. That's when they're going to need that tourniquet I told them to get.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll throw one more thing in here with this is, so I was lucky that I used to play in an airsoft league, and a lot of the guys in the airsoft league were former infantry. So I got a lot of free training from guys who were combat experienced. So learned a lot of cool stuff and how to do left-handed, right-hand, how to retention reloads, all that kind of stuff. What I did was the airsoft equipment that I chose was the identical to the same stuff that I use for my home. Absolutely. So, and it's so close, the weight, the dimensions, how the controls and everything function, it's so close to the real thing. So you can safely practice all kinds of different things, like how to clear a malfunction and all kinds of stuff like that without having an accidental discharge.
Right. Exactly. That's very important. Yeah.
I still have a gas blowback, 1911 from when I used to play airsoft. I thought it was the coolest thing because it cycles and everything. Yeah. And I have friends who have asked me to show them their first time going to the range, and that's actually what I use.
There you go.
To train them. I'm like, because you can drop a magazine, you can put the slide back, and also having that bright orange tip on the end, I can be like, make sure that's always facing that way.
Right, exactly. Hey, I still work out with mine. I have the same thing. I have a 1911 airsoft. It's gas fed. Mm-hmm. And the good thing about that is you don't have to have a big bunch of land out in the middle of nowhere to do it.
Right.
You can do it right in your backyard if you live in the suburbs.
Yep.
And I still use mine to work out with. It's fun. It's inexpensive, but it gives you that repetitiveness over and over that you need.
And it's quiet too. So your neighbors aren't going to call 911.
Right.
Yeah, don't pick the wrong one out back. It might be a bad scenario.
All right. Any other thoughts, guys?
Does anybody out there have any questions? Bring them to us if you have them now.
I think Buzz had a question. I'm going to defer to you, Orlando.
Can you run a 380 through a 9mm? Yes or no? No, do not do that. No. It's not going to feed it proper. It'll fire that first round, but then you're done.
Mess up your tool, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anything else, guys? Bring them to us.
If you guys got questions, now's the time.
You got three geniuses here trying to help you out. Yeah.
Yes.
NYC's prepper, ex-NYC prepper's right. That airsoft is great. You know, I love it. I do.
Yeah, definitely. There's actually a place up around me that has airsoft and paintball. And as much as I love getting thwacked by a paintball, I do love the realism and the accuracy in airsoft. It's like I started playing paintball, and yeah, that was fun. Sort of sucked getting hit by a paintball, but you know, the airsoft is just so much more realistic and accurate too, because you can actually hit a target, whereas paintball, you might see it going and it'll just curve off to the side.
Michelle J said she saw a question about a reliable place to buy medical supplies. Well, honestly, I'm going to tell you what, Amazon is just about as good as anybody. If you just know what you need and what you want, you can go to Amazon and buy pretty much any kind of medical supply you need. So you might want to check that out.
Mm-hmm.
Stay away from some of the tourniquets on Amazon, though.
Yeah.
You go to Rhino Rescue, right?
Hey, Rhino Rescue makes some great stuff. Yeah, they sell some good stuff. They do.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll admit I saw a lot of what Prepping with Sarge was doing with the Rhino Rescue, and started making me think about buying one. But I'm always in the kind of mindset that I like to purchase and build my own stuff.
Right.
I actually found a really nice Army Navy store online that has, first of all, it has pre-built ones, a little bit more expensive, but they have stuff like decompression needles, stuff like that in the IFACs. And I was like, you know, that's a little bit more my speed, a little bit more my level. I was like, I might try to build one based off their stuff. But I don't know. That was the whole, I've been saying I'm trying to build an IFAC. But the problem is with the holidays, everybody must have had the same idea or is buying a lot of the same stuff. So it's been forever for me to get any of the stuff so far. I'm still not sure when I'm going to get some of it.
It looks like X has a question here. Can't have anything but a long gun, you know, in my communist state. Should I move or hide? It's up to you, buddy. I mean, if you got a nice place where you want to stay, you know, I got to be careful what I say here, especially on that question. If you want to move to a gun-friendly state, you know where I am. Florida's gun-friendly. I'm sure South Carolina is. I know Tennessee is. Yeah. There are several of those, but there are ways for you to get around that. But I can't explain them here. So
I'll say this. So there are people we know in the community that, for all kinds of different reasons, they can't own the kind of tools that we're talking about, right?
Right.
Then there might be legal alternatives in your area. You would have to check your local laws because every state really is different on this. But some ideas that might come to mind would be a crossbow.
Absolutely.
Pepper spray is going to be legal for most people in most states. Good old fashioned baseball bat. If you can find them, one of those old mag lights. They're about this big, the old ones.
I have one of those.
Yeah, I've got one too by one of our doors. It's our attitude adjuster that stays near one of the doors, and it's filled with D batteries. And let me tell you, back in the day, that got used by a lot of people to handle situations. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
That thing's heavy, and I mean, you can if you adjust somebody's attitude with that, they're probably going to sleep.
Yeah, you can swing for the fences with one of those. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But you
check your local laws.
Especially you, X, you know how to contact me. Contact me. I'll tell you how to get around some of this.
He was probably hoping one of us would say that we'd be pulling out a cane with his cane foo.
That's right. That's right. That man can do that cane, buddy. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, like, sometimes you, again, check your local laws, and everybody's situation is different, but sometimes black powder rifles are considered a little bit different. The laws on that stuff can be a little bit different. So,
Yep.
not that it's like necessarily the best option, but pellet guns too fall into a different category.
Yeah.
So, it's impossible to say for all 50 states in the United States, like, what's going to apply in each situation. You have to kind of check your local laws.
Right. Yeah, Michelle J made a good point there. Her dad kept a baseball bat in his car. But let me give you some advice. If you're going to do that, also put a baseball glove and a baseball in there with it.
Yep.
That way it looks like you're carrying it for athletic reasons.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's sort of like the people that put the accessories on their tools that say things like smile, wait for the flash kind of thing.
Yeah.
When it comes down to it, it's like, that's not exactly the best thing to see, and you're up in front of a judge.
Yeah, attorneys love that when they're prosecuting.
Yeah, it's going to make it harder to explain to a jury for sure.
Absolutely.
And I know, like, we all like to have fancy things and stuff like that, but you put that Punisher skull in your shotgun, and they're going to show it to the jury, and they're going to say, this guy was waiting to hurt somebody.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, I've been there many times, believe me. Being a former police officer, you wouldn't believe how many lawsuits I faced. Thank goodness I didn't lose any of them. but it was people that, they were just hoping that I did something wrong. So don't give them any reason to think you did.
Right.
Yeah. And I used to, just even for pocket knives, I used to carry a karambit. You guys know what that is? It's a curved blade.
Yeah.
Vicious for self-defense. If you had to get into one of those type of situations, I switched. Just went back to your very standard folder. Right.
There you go. Yeah.
And the reason was that I had a friend who's a lawyer who said, yeah, if you end up having to use that, you're going to get your day in court and everything, and they're going to show that to the jury, and they're going to say, look at this thing. This guy wanted to hurt somebody.
Yep. I just carry a plain, 4-inch, SOG knife, SOG knife, whatever you call it, SOG or SOG. Yeah. But, it's just a plain knife. And if I ever have to use it, it's just a knife.
Right. Yep. It's a tool.
Yep.
That's the knife I carry. I won't tell you what else I carry.
I think somebody said, what about the best brand of tourniquet up there? Let me see.
I can't say which one's the best brand. There's a lot of good ones out there.
Yeah.
If you just go to, your reliable medical supply, distributors, they're going to have some good ones.
Right.
As long as it's a good nylon strip with a good fiberglass or composite, handle on it, twist on it, then it's probably going to work.
Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely say one of the biggest ones I always see is the combat action tourniquet, the CAT.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
But everybody knows if you can just spend $30, that's what you can find them for. A lot of times you'll see them. That's the thing. When something is really good, people try to duplicate it. So a lot of the ones you find on Amazon for like $20, they might have like the red tab on the one end, or they might have it set up the same way. But I think the CAT tourniquet might actually be North American Rescue. I'm not sure if that's the brand. I'll have to double check. But always look for the combat action tourniquet. Rhino Rescue, I've seen a lot of reviews after watching your videos on the packs. Mm-hmm. That was one of my first thoughts was, I wonder how good that tourniquet actually is. Mm-hmm. And after watching people torture test it, and I say torture test, like they put it on 4x4s and cranked it till they physically couldn't crank it anymore. I'm like, okay, looks like that passes the muster, I'm like, I don't think I'm going to be cranking it to the point that, a 4x4 is going to be creaking, I'm supposed to crank them, but I was like, that's pretty impressive, so I would say just find one that has that is well known. Don't just go on Amazon, because you're going to get one that has single stitching and a plastic handle, and every time you're going to go to use it, you're going to cinch it down and it's just going to snap, and who knows.
Yeah,
Yep.
and unfortunately, that was a lot of those cheaply made ones were getting sent over to Ukraine, and they were reporting back, "Hey, thanks for all the supplies, guys, but your tourniquets are crap."
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Oh my god. I won't even get into Ukraine. I'm not going to do that here.
Understood. All right. Any other questions we got here? Those are good questions, guys. And by the way, thank you again. I think this was a really great chat tonight. We appreciate you
Oh
both.
yeah. Oh yeah. Thanks
Yeah.
for getting us together, Kyle. I appreciate it, buddy.
Thank you guys both for coming. I know, I definitely needed to try to get back into it a little bit. I've been working out just about every day and just kicking my own butt. So I'm glad to have a little bit of time to host Sarge, since he was kind enough to host me way back when I was just getting into things and trying to figure out the channel. And it was good to meet you, the Orlando Prepper.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on board, buddy.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Appreciate you both.
Anytime, you know where I'm at, guys. Bring it on. I'm here to help people. That's all I want to do is help people.
Yep. And that's the beauty of the whole prepping community is, I know, Prepping with Sarge always says about it, and I know Vision Preparedness always says about, we're here to help each other. We're here to help each other grow, learn things, because at the end of the day, it's a community. And on top of all that, one person you help is one less person that you have to try to save in the ladder of things. It's
Absolutely.
the of it. But is there anything else you guys wanted to talk about? Anything else?
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, buddy, my glass is dry.
You need more apple juice.
I'm going to step out of here and get me some apple juice. I appreciate everybody being here with us. Like I said, thank you for bringing me on board. Sarge, you're the man. Been watching you for a long time.
Oh, I appreciate that.
You pass along a lot of good information. And I told my people last night on my live stream, Kyle, come over here and subscribe to your channel. You're trying to do what I do, and that's just help people.
Yeah, if you all, oh, sorry.
It's all right. I just think that's what we're all here for. It's that simple.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if there's people in chat or people that were just kind of hanging around lurking, if this is your first time here, definitely hit that subscribe button. Help him grow. It's a hard time on YouTube right now. They are not making it easy on the preparedness community to get the information out. So word of mouth is so critical.
Absolutely. All right. I'm stepping out, guys. Y'all have a good night.
Me too. Thank you both.
All right. Appreciate every
Thank you,
one
chat,
of you.
too.
All right.
All right.
All right. And then you know how to close it up the top?
Sir. All right. Thank you very much again. I'll see y'all on the flip side.
See you later on. Thank you so much.
Thank you.